Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, Berryjuicysweet Dishes. And if this is your first time, then welcome to my channel, all positive vibes. Well, today we will be making a loaf of white bread. Let me show you how. Let's begin. So I want to take 1 1/4 cup of warm water, and I want to put this water in the microwave, and I'm going to microwave it to 110 degrees Fahrenheit or 45 degrees Celsius. Once we warmed our water up in the microwave, which took about 1 minute and 6 seconds, it all depends on the watts of your microwave. So let's give it a try and see. So right now we got it at 110. Oh, there it is. Let's do it again. So we want to get it like at 110. So right now our temperatures are still a little too high. So let the water cool down for just a few minutes. All right, let's check our temperature. All right, we got it at 110. All right. So while our temperature in that water is still warm, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of sugar. I'm going to use stevia sugar instead, but you are welcome to use hurricane sugar or any sugar to your desire. Next, I'm going to take 1 packet of active dry yeast, or either you can use 2 1/4 tablespoons of dry yeast. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it in a bowl with my sugar. Next, I'm going to add the water, and then I'm going to stir it gently in my mixture. So what I want it to do is I want it to get like a froth kind of consistency to this. If it does not froth, it's either maybe because the yeast is old or the water is too hot. So you just want to start again and use fresh yeast and water, if it doesn't froth. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this sit for about 5 minutes until it becomes frothy. And then how you know that it becomes frothy is because you'll see the yeast begin to sit on the top of the water like a residue but it's the yeast becoming active. So while this sit for 5 minutes in froth, we're going to go ahead and get our flour ready for our bread and other ingredients. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get about 4 cups of bread flour. You can also use all-purpose flour, but for my bread I'm going to use bread flour. So I'm going to take a large bowl, and I'm going to add 4 cups of the bread flour into a large bowl. Next, I'm going to add 1 1.5 teaspoon of salt. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stir this together. Next, what I'm going to do is we're going to check on our active yeast to see is it frothed any yet. And as you can see, the top right around up in here, see where it's starting to look as if it's like a film or something on the top, because the yeast is become active now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to the side. We're going to take our flour, and then we're going to make like a little well for in the middle. So therefore this is where we're going to pour the active yeast. In the middle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pour that active yeast in the center. Next, then I'm going to take about 2 tablespoons of some unsalted butter, softened, and I'm going to also pour that in the center. So this is also a great time if you want to add other ingredients in your bread, such as honey or whatever you desire to add. This would be a great time to add it. Any kind of cheese, nuts, or honey, any olive oil, any other ingredients that you want to add in your bread would be the perfect time to add it now. So with our bread, let's add about 1 tablespoon of the olive oil. And then I'm going to also add about 1 tablespoon of the honey. So you want to mix this together with a wooden spoon or with your hands, because what this does, it gives your dough the right amount of manipulation without overwhelming it. The wooden spoon provides a sturdy, strong handle for vigorous mixing, incorporating the air into the dough by scraping the sides of the bowl while preventing overmixing by not being as smooth as a metal spoon, allowing for better gluten development without breaking the dough down too much. Because I couldn't find my wooden spoon, I'm going to use my hands for this recipe. You just keep on blending it all together until it all comes together and you don't see any more of that leftover flour at the bottom. We don't want to see any of that. And you will continue to bring it all together. Until it becomes one big ball. So what we're going to do is we're going to prepare this so we can knead it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some all-purpose flour. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flour my surface, so I can begin to knead my dough on. And what I'm going to do is I want to make sure that when I knead my dough, that my dough do not come back sticky, because if it does, I'm going to add more flour to it. And as you see, I have more than enough flour on my counter. All right, let's move this out of our way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this same bowl and I'm going to grease. I put a little oil in this bowl. Some olive oil. And what I'm going to do is I want to make sure that the bowl, I don't know why I can't talk right now. I want to make sure that the bowl is oiled. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my dough, my kneaded dough back in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it up with some plastic wrap or either damp cloth, either or. So I'm going to wrap my bread with some plastic wrap. Doesn't matter what plastic wrap you have, just as long as it's plastic wrap. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit this in a draft-free place for about 1 hour or until the dough has doubled in the size. Tips for success with your bread and proper kneading: ensure that the dough is kneaded well to develop the gluten, which gives the bread the structure and the texture. But the rising time, if your dough is rising slowly, make sure that your yeast is fresh and that the rising environment is warm. And also when adding those flavors again, feel free to add the herbs, seeds, or cheese to the dough for extra flavor. You can mix in about 1/4 cup of your favorite additions after kneading the dough. All right, so after our bread had sat for 1 hour and it risen to twice the size, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it out the bowl. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push out any air that has formed in my dough as it's set. I'm just releasing any air. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on a lightly floured surface because I already put it on a heavy floured surface earlier. So what I want to do is I'm going to grease my oil pan with some extra virgin olive oil. You can also use, if you don't have a loaf pan, you can also use a baking pan and line it with some parchment paper. So what I want to do is I'm going to shape my dough so what I'm going to do is shape my dough into a loaf. And then what I want to do So what I'm going to do is place my bread inside this loaf pan. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it back up with some plastic wrap. And I'm going to let it sit for 30 minutes until it rises double in size. So I'm going to let this sit for 30 minutes and then we'll come back and check on it. Okay, so now our bread has risen double in size, and I preheated my oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to bake this bread for 25 to 30 minutes or until this loaf is golden brown. And you'll know when it's done because when you tap on it, it'll have like a hollow sound. And then that's also another way to tell that it's fully cooked. Or you can lift it up, and then it'll have that hollow sound as well. Okay, so you can also use a thermometer to check the internal temperature. It should be around 190 degrees Fahrenheit or 88 degrees Celsius. All right, well, let's put it in the oven. So we're going to let our bread cool before we take it out of the pan and slice it up. So once our bread is ready and cooled, we're going to take it and sit it on the right so it can cool a little more. Look at that. Nice. So we're going to let that sit there for about 5 or 7 minutes and let it continue to cool. Now that my bread is cooled down, let's get ready to slice it. Look at that. Delicious. Bread is warm, fresh, soft. Wow. And this bread can be stored up to 3 days in a paper bag or wrapped in a cloth at room temperature. For longer storages, you can freeze the bread or wrap it tightly in a plastic wrap or aluminum foil. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Don't forget to hit that like button and also subscribe to my channel. And again, everyone, thank you for joining. Tune in. Well, bye for now.